Pete Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's good to meet you, man.
Yeah, pleasure.
It's your story came up in my Facebook feed when one of my Facebook friends shared it, the broadsheet article of you closing your restaurant Chic in Melbourne. Tell me a little bit about how you came to Chic and the story behind that, because I was fascinated. I went down a rabbit hole that lasted a couple of hours, and I'm like, I have to speak to this guy on the podcast.
Yeah.
So tell me where Chic came from.
As in, like, where did the idea
the concept. Yeah.
So it was 2010, I think.
Yeah.
Or 9. I kind of discovered that I wanted to be in hospitality. And then I got involved with a group called Taste of Young Sydney. I don't know if you remember that back then.
Yep.
And then Morgan McGlone, who's one of the main guys behind it, he kind of inspired me to start my own Korean journey. Because at the time,
were you a chef?
No, I've always been front of house.
Really?
Yeah. So Chic was the first time. Well, not the first time, but the first kitchen I've ever really worked in.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah, because the whole time I've been front of house, more on the wine end of things. It was all based on a struggle for identity.
For you or for the brand? For you.
Because
that's so
interesting. Born in Australia, white Australia would be like, oh, where are you really from? Always.
Hey, dude, I know exactly the same thing. I feel like a pretend white woman because I look white as they come, but I'm first generation Australian from Syria.
Yeah, which is the same for me. And they're like, oh,
right.
Where are you really from?
Yeah.
But then even the Koreans would look at me differently because I don't have the same attitudes and values in life, I guess.
I'm right there with you. It's like you become an outcast in two cultures. In all the cultures that you exist in. Like, you're not really Australian, are you? And you're not really Korean, are you?
No.
Where the fuck do I belong, right?
Yeah. So that was kind of, and then my parents divorced when I was young and I left home quite early, like in year 8.
What?
Yeah. Year 8 or year 9, I don't even remember exactly.
Okay.
Which made my loss of identity bigger. Because I was so separated from my parents and I couldn't connect with them. That's what this has all been about. And then,
What does Chic mean?
So Chic, well, Korean language is based off Hanja, so the language of the Han Dynasty. So we essentially spoke and wrote in the Chinese language. And then the Korean language was a simplified alphabet version, a phonetic version of the Chinese language, where Chinese have tens and thousands of symbols and characters. So Chic does have a lot of definitions. It means a meal. In one instance, it also means a celebration, ingredients, knowledge, and a method. So there's there's like 30 variations of the character Chic, but there were 5 of those definitions that meant a lot to me and what I wanted to do.
Which is really important whenever you're building a brand, right? It's important to have a story behind it.
Yeah.
So you are working front of house. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
Me, I
always love when people have to think about that.
The last time I celebrated my birthday was like 20.
So you're in your mid-30s, right?
Yeah, 35 this year.
So you left home really early.
Yep.
You go into the workforce, and have you been front of house pretty much that whole time, or have you dabbled in a whole bunch of things?
I've worked in hospitality always to make ends meet.
Yeah.
I always kind of shifted around in different parts of the world, but different parts of work.
Yeah.
Just to kind of figure out where I wanted to be. Because of that whole young experience and not Australian, not Korean, I was adamant that I needed to find what I wanted to do. Like I wasn't going to be a doctor or an optometrist or that typical expectation. And I always thought I was going to do music. And then
really, what do you play?
I played the drums and guitar.
What kind of music?
Whatever on those, but like I had a whole recording studio set up at home, and I was about hip hop and all that, the struggle.
Yeah, nice. I like that, man. I used to release music for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So
But never got to releasing. It was just all.
It's never too late. That's the beauty of this
I
era.
haven't touched a drum or a guitar for like at least 11 years, I reckon.
You know, the cool thing about what you've done though is like music is one of those things that you can use to explore a situation. You use it to explore. I mean, for me, it's therapy.
Yeah.
So if I need to understand something about what's going on in me, I write a song and use it to pick something apart. Like music is that thing that once you've learnt the elemental parts of it, you never forget it. You don't have to be great at it. You just have to be real at it, right?
Yeah.
And you've just gone through a hugely intense journey that requires some pensiveness.
Yep.
And well, I mean, what better time to write music? Or just pick up some sticks and beat the shit out of them.
I just want to look at history more.
Yeah, right.
Because like history like the culinary history of Korea has helped me understand who I am, my parents, and Koreans.
Yeah,
and, like,
wow.
For me, like I've never been comfortable with claiming who I am, but now I am. It's like, fuck you, I'm fucking Australian and I'm fucking Korean. If you don't want to accept that, fuck you.
I'm down with that. I'm absolutely down with this idea of nobody gets to claim what my identity is. I get to decide what my identity is, and then I got to own it. And then I got to be that. And guess what? It's fluid. It changes. Like as I grow and as I experience and as I do the hard shit, I throw that identity wide open, right? And I decide that, okay, so right now I'm an entrepreneur, but 5 years ago, I was a musician and an entrepreneur. Now I'm a businesswoman that's exploring a whole bunch of shit. So I feel like that doing the hard shit teaches you that you have the right to identify yourself as whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, but we should know to do that even before the hardships.
Yeah, but nobody teaches that shit.
No, it doesn't.
There's no class at school that says, listen, life is fucking tough. Nobody told me that. Nobody ever said to me life was going to be really hard. And nobody told me whatever it is you choose to do, it needs to be something that makes you happy.
Yep. It's got to be white collar. It's got to be.
Yeah. So you're working for a house. You decide you want to open a restaurant and be in the kitchen. What gave you the confidence? Oh, so no.
No, not really.
How did that go?
I never thought I'd be in the kitchen. Like, well, even with Chick, I wasn't in the kitchen actively. Like during service, I'd be front of house. I probably did maybe like a shift or two a week in the early stages of it because I was staffed for it.
Yep.
But it just happened, I feel like.
Tell me what that means. It just happened.
Like 10 years ago when I started Soul of Sydney, which is a pop-up collective I did back, or not, it's like 9 years ago.
Cheers, by the way.
Cheers, yes. Because of my parents had a Korean grocery store before I was born.
Of course they did.
Born into that. One of the first Korean grocery stores in Australia.
That's awesome.
And then so that was part of my life. And then my dad owns a restaurant called Madang in Sydney.
What part of Sydney?
In the city.
Okay.
Which has been now open for like 15 years.
Wow.
I think I can confidently say it's probably the most popular restaurant.
Korean restaurant?
Yeah.
Is it still strict Korean? Traditional Korean?
Tradition is such a vague word for me. I kind of refer to that food as post-war Korean, which is
Tell me more.
Korean food today. Because Korea was poor until the 70s.
Okay.
Like, we were poor. We always had our conflicts and invasions and whatnot, but the whole country couldn't read, write, or were they educated. We were all peasant class. But after the war, we started becoming commercialized, industrialized, and then money started growing.
Okay.
Whereas, like, I think Korean food, for me, the old world values draw me to the cuisine. The new world values of the difference between eating to survive was pre-war, and now it's eating
for delicacy.
Yeah, and eating out of want kind of has changed. I guess when you've got money, you want to eat well. You know, you want to eat
you
meat.
can eat well. You have the option to eat well.
Yeah. But yeah, like for me, Korean food's about eating out of necessity, I guess, and being understanding and nature. Because like we literally eat everything and anything. We'd eat the leaves off the chili plant. We'll eat the roots of, I don't even know what, like we'd eat roots from other plants. We'd eat,
which is very similar to Aboriginal cuisine, right?
I think with every cuisine.
Yeah.
I think every cuisine started off, as necessity. So we try to utilize everything and anything that we discovered to be edible.
Was it mostly vegan?
Originally, from my understanding, we began as Confucian Buddhists or Confucian vegetarians. That was the original first kind of evolution of Korea, I guess.
I imagine animal products and eating meat would have been quite expensive.
It wasn't even thought of back then because we used livestock. Not that we had much, but we used livestock for like horses,
labor.
Labor for wars and for carrying and transporting. And it was only, when did Genghis Khan invade again? I think it was like the 1200s.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm listening to a podcast about that now. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and Genghis Khan kind of
fucked everything up.
I don't believe in any culture. There's always something to gain out of getting fucked over. Like you make a mistake, you fall, but you
rebuild.
Yeah.
Look at you looking at the positive in everything.
Yeah, like they started teaching us how to eat meat, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then different cultures came in and influenced that. Like our national spirit, soju, is from bloody Persia.
Oh.
Yeah, we used to call it arakchu.
Arakchu.
Yeah, chu is the Han dynasty's language for alcohol.
Well, we call hara.
Yeah, arak. And
you know what hara is? Hara is it's arak. It's the alcohol that you dilute and it turns cloudy white. It starts off as clear.
Yeah.
You add some water to it and it breaks it to look like milk. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what our national spirit is based on. There's so many evolutions in, I believe, every cuisine. I've only looked at Korean and I'm too fascinated by it to look at other cuisines yet because there's so much more to delve into.
We could go towards cultural appropriation right now. We're going to hold off on it because we're going to deep dive into that. Because I feel like that is where you start getting into this idea of fusion and cultural appropriation and what is it and what isn't it and who's got the right to cook this and blah, blah, blah. We'll get to that in a second. I kind of want to dissect this journey that you went on. When did Chic close?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's saying I'm really sorry that the business closed. I want to congratulate you on the decision.
No, thank you.
It
wasn't my decision.
Yeah. I want to congratulate you on the journey.
Yeah.
Because, I'm a big advocate for do the hard shit. I'm also a big advocate for this idea of, business isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
It'll cost you twice as much as you think it will. It'll take you twice as long and you'll make half as much. But if you've got it in your bones to do it, then you should absolutely do it.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't last. You'll learn so much about the journey, and it'll teach you for the rest of your life. Like there's lessons in what you've done that are going to be teachable moments forever. When you decide to open a restaurant like Chic, from the idea to the opening, how long was it for you?
Well, like the original idea of opening my own Korean restaurant was 10 years ago. I guess I spent, and everything I've done was essentially to get to here. But I guess the concept of Chic, 2-3 years, including the year that I spent being open.
Okay. So it's not like you decided, I'm going to do this, fuck it, I'm not going to plan for this at all. I'm going to just go ahead and do it. There was planning involved.
Yeah. Every job I took, I tried to kind of benefit it, learn from that to apply. And then I guess it took that many years to kind of define what Korean food is for me. And understand it a bit more, because of my dad's restaurant and my grocery store, I was like, fuck, I know Korean food. I'm fucking Korean. Like, how can I not know Korean food?
Right.
But that came crushing down real quick.
Why do you think it came crushing down?
Because people ask questions to me about Korean food, because I said, ask me about Korean food. I know Korean food. And I was literally answering an email as quickly as possible, but researching the topic at the same time.
Yeah, wow. Is it because there's loads of definitions of what Korean food is?
I think it's more that there's so many evolutions, and I don't think, like today, people look at cuisine as dishes and recipes, but I don't think that's the right way.
What do you think the right way is?
I don't think, like your grandmother, they don't tell you how to cook. They'll be like a bit of this, a bit of that, and it becomes something. I think they're looking at what they have available, and they're looking at the traditions of the cultures that have been handed down and applying that method. It's more, I think it's more of a philosophy or a way of life.
So it's not a set kind of approach. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
So it's a little more organic and flexible than the way we typically run restaurants. Yes,
and the way we look at it, like commercialization is probably the biggest flaw. Not flaw. I don't know if it's flaw.
Hurdle.
It's definitely changed the way everything's looked at. You know, commercialization has brought in carrots 365 days of the year. You know, commercialization has brought beef 365 days of the year, milk 365. Like everything we want is available whenever we want now. And because of that, I guess, and then business is always about consistency. Whereas our grandmas didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, we have this, we have that, let's fucking make it.
Let's make a dish that works with all of that.
Yeah, let's approach this, respect it, and make it something edible.
So is what you're saying that you were trying to stay authentic to what the idea of Korean cuisine is, but the business model that you were operating in, or the I guess the industry model that you're operating in, and the clients that are likely to visit your restaurant in Melbourne aren't able to get on board with the way that you wanted to approach it. Yeah.
It was super confusing for him. Even my sous chef who joined me in October, like, I think he's a great example. He's been cooking for 15 years, working in catering and hotels. Like slightly different world to the hospitality world that I've been working in. But, 15 years of cooking, you still cooked. You still learn technique. You still learn what's rare, what's medium. You learn cooking either way. He jumped on board, and he thought he knew what my food was. And I was like, cool, like, you'll find out.
Okay.
And the whole 6 months, he's been really confused. Like, he's just like, everything you do it works, but it doesn't make sense. Like everything that
What an interesting concept.
Everything I've learned in cooking that you do is wrong.
Is counterintuitive. It might not be wrong, but it's counterintuitive. Is that right?
It's just everything went against what he's learned the 15 years he's been cooking.
So the planning that you'd put into this business did you anticipate that the people that you were bringing on board, had you considered that the people you were bringing on board to your journey and that the clients that were going to be visiting your restaurant, because a close friend of mine went to Chic and he said the food was awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
he loved it. And he's a really big wig in the Australian coffee scene and he loved the food. The interesting thing about what I'm interested to know is, was it that other people weren't on board with the journey you were trying to take them on? Do you think that people were confused by what Chic was as from a customer and an employee perspective?
Employees, I think I've been really lucky for the most part. For me, work experience and all that wasn't much value. It was more attitudes.
The unteachable skills.
And train of thought. And
passion.
Passion as well, but also how open-minded they seemed.
Open-minded to?
Food and Korean food.
Okay.
Because I know everything I know right now can one day be proven wrong. And I'm ready to accept that.
Did Chic teach you that?
Yes.
So you went on board with that mindset before Chic?
No, not at all. I guess, it's been an intense, like the 1 year that Chic was open, there's been a lot of changes in me and my train of thought and my values.
Yeah, kudos to you, man. Like, this is why I tell people, do hard shit. Like, it is absolutely going to teach you everything you never wanted to know about yourself.
Yeah. I don't know if I learned anything that I didn't want to know. Like, I've never been happier about myself than now.
Oh, congratulations. And
I've never felt as strong as now.
The people who had read the article that Broadsheet put out, what you just said there is what everybody who read the article and commented that I knew said. Like, they're so impressed that when most people turn around and make excuses for why a restaurant, doesn't end up surviving, you owned that shit. And you said...
it's my fault. It's my business. I decided to open it. I decided what's on the menu, what I serve, how I serve. Like, if customers don't understand it, is it their fault? No. It's through and through my fault. Like, yes, there's misconceptions and preconceptions that these people bring, which is wrong on their behalf, but it's also my responsibility to penetrate through those misconceptions and penetrations with a message, with a story, which is where I feel like I didn't do well.
I can really relate to that, dude. I'm trying to get people to, I'm trying to build a business with a beverage that no one has ever in the history of coffee ever created.
Yeah.
And it's pushing
shit.
Sorry?
Coffee has to be a certain way.
Well, that's the problem. Is you can't say that this elixir, if you call it coffee, people's brains are programmed to one definition of coffee.
Yeah,
and this doesn't taste
commercialization,
right? And so, trying to bring a brand new product to market that completely bucks the system is like pushing shit uphill. So I absolutely feel what you're going through, because I've made so many mistakes, and I continue to make mistakes, and I learn on a daily basis.
Yeah, of course. Like, there's always a lesson somewhere.
Tell me about it. So you open Chic.
Yeah.
What do you feel like? What's the hope when you open Chic?
When I open Chic, that people would just enjoy what I do.
Did you have a plan for how long you wanted to stay open?
I wanted to do this for the rest of my life, so I was in for the long run.
So you're all in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And had you set up, I mean, I don't know how much business experience you had before this. Did you have much? Was this your first?
Not really. This is my first business.
Your first business. Was that side of things a shock to you, like all the bookkeeping and financial planning and cash flow management?
I know. Like I understood, but I guess the depth of it I didn't. So that was a shock. There's like you can manage venues, but you still miss out on the details of business here and there.
The difference that when I speak to managers versus owners about cash flow, I tell the managers, the one thing that you don't ever have to deal with, that the owner has to deal with, is the massive anxiety that comes with managing cash flow.
Yeah.
The stress of having to cover wages every week.
Yeah.
And pay your suppliers every week and figure out this juggling act of how the fuck do I pay everyone? Because I know I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
I know absolutely I'm not getting paid for at least the first 12 months or 3 years or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
And even then it's touch and go. The stress that, I mean, I wasn't prepared for this. Elixir's my first business with physical product.
Yeah.
The cash flow management that goes with stock control and all that kind of stuff, the anxiety associated with that can be debilitating.
Yeah.
Can you relate to that?
Yes, like it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I had a customer dine with me and they were like, you really hate this right now. And I was a server. Because I thought I was pretty open about it. Like, it's not doing great. But the customer pulled me aside and was just like, you really hate this. I was like, yeah, I guess so. And like, I can see that.
Oh, okay.
And they were super nice about it. They're like, I understand what you're going through, but I guess shouldn't be able to experience that. It's like, why are you a server? Why are you a server? I was like, because I wanted people to have a great time.
Yeah.
So that made me realize that debilitating stress is pointless. So I let everything go. I was like, fuck it. I've already put myself in this situation. If this falls, it falls. But if I keep holding on to this dark energy, you know, like shit happens from that. You know, shit goes down a deep rabbit hole.
Deeper down.
So I was just like, in one instant, I was just like, you know what, fuck it. It is what it is. And that that made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like, okay, I'm behind on payments. Okay, let's fucking just try to make it work. Not dwell in it's not working. Cutting labor, sucking it up more, you know, working more hours, whatever. I was just like, let's just get it done. At least if it falls, I tried.
You can't not be proud of that, dude.
No,
it's
humbling more than anything, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You have like this appreciation for what you're capable of when you start to do this kind of stuff.
Oh, I'm invincible.
I can absolutely relate to that feeling. It's every time I get excited about doing hard shit now, because it's like, I know I might not know exactly how to do that right now, but I know I'm going to be able to figure this out. And I know what it feels like the ugliness of what it feels like to fall over.
I think it's more beautiful. The beauty of ugly is amazing.
Yeah. So well said.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you don't know how beautiful it is until you've dared to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because I think of it as the greatest moment of potentiality.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see so much of it's like the closest you are to everything that's fucked up about you, and you can't fix that fucked upness.
Yeah.
until you're that close to it.
Yeah. And it's a new beginning then.
And it's really beautiful. It's really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
When you approach a business like Chic, and it's your first business, how do you approach, like you said, you had a couple of years before you actually opened from the time that you decided it was going to be called Chic, or you had the idea in your head, the solid idea in your head. How did you approach like finding a place and what it was going to look like and creating a financial plan and all that kind of stuff?
Financial plan I did set up, but I think I've kind of learned that it's pointless.
How so?
If you don't get bums on seats, where's your financial plan?
Yeah.
I think the shitty thing is money helps you survive, but for small business operators, money is not freely accessible like the big corporations, you know.
Yeah. Marketing is the most important part of that. I mean, marketing is the source of the cash. Cash is king in our business, in every business.
Yeah. But also marketing, it's a strange world of marketing right now. Because I think 2018, I probably had the most press out of any restaurant in Australia last year.
Yeah, wow.
Like I was everywhere and anywhere, from New Zealand, just like Australia, where all the mediums covered me. You know, a little mention in Monocle magazine, New York Times review. Like I was spoilt with press. And I didn't have to spend money on it, but at the same time, like, what did that provide?
What didn't it provide? So one would assume that you get written up by all these publications and you're going to have lines out the door.
Yes, I assumed that as well, which is what made opening the restaurant easier. Because I knew I was going to have a lot of press coverage. So I was like, yeah, it'll be fine.
What happened?
No one came.
Why do you think that is? That's really interesting. Because people keep saying it's all about, you know, who writes you up and how much press you have and et cetera, et cetera. Why do you think people didn't come?
Everyone wrote it differently, first of all. But I think there's so much content out there these days as well that it can get lost. So I don't understand either. Like, because, you know, Good Food Guide would mention me 3-4 times.
Wow.
You know, Broadsheet would mention me 3-4 times, and then all of these channels have, you know, they do the lists of best new restaurants this year and restaurants that you must need to visit now, and like all of that. There's a lot of coverage, but I don't know why people. It surprises me that people had not heard about my restaurant even.
Yep.
But I guess that's a lesson in itself. It's like I can't assume that everyone knows just because I've got 100 mentions out there.
How would you do that different?
I just do it smaller.
From a marketing perspective, how would you do that side of things different?
I don't know. That's one thing that I don't think I'll ever be able to work out.
You still have to unpack that.
Yeah, I think the one thing I know that I can do differently is now I know what my food is. Because when I started, I said my food is Korean food done with Australian produce. And that was the story.
Okay.
But certain people interpreted that so very differently, because some people would interpret that as fusion. And then some people would translate that into modern Australian or modern Korean. Where they all tended to fit, but because they all fit, it never made sense. And I was saying I was traditional. Like I was more traditional than traditional. But then all these labels are calling me modern. It's like, that doesn't make sense.
So there was a lot of mixed messaging going out?
Yes, definitely. But that was my fault, because I didn't deliver a convincing message to whoever was going to write me up.
Did you have a publicist?
No.
So I guess that's something that a publicist could have been able to handle for you, is like control the messaging a little bit more for you. Even if you're getting all this press.
Now, yes. When I opened Schick, no chance.
How come?
Because I didn't know. That was just my forced idea.
I tell you what, a publicist would be really grateful though in that situation. They will help you know. So publicists are great for sitting you down and running through and saying, okay, let's talk about what you're about. We need to define this, and this so that we can control the messaging. And that's part of their job, to help you do that. And a lot of it.
But I was confused as well at the same time. And I sat down with friends that are involved in PR and stuff and brainstormed, and it never really made sense. It made sense, but it only ever made sense to me because I'm everywhere. Like, I think of everything in Korean food, and I'm trying to relay everything that I know into a one-sentence message. It's impossible, especially also not being a chef. Having not been a chef and defining my philosophy on the food wasn't there.
Yeah, wow.
So I needed to do Schick to be able to build my understanding and philosophy. And it's only, like, I always thought it was just, there's more to Korean food, but through Schick I kind of understood that we were looking at Korean food incorrectly.
Who's we?
Everyone. Like, I feel like we look at Korean cuisine in the modern sensibility, whereas I was looking at history, but still looking at it through a modern sensibility.
Give me an example. This is really interesting. So what do you define? I'm so in the sun here. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So give me an understanding of what you guys were serving. Tell me something that was on the menu, but speak to me in like.
I'll speak with kimchi. I think that's a good start.
For people who don't know what kimchi is that are listening, tell people what kimchi is.
You want to hear me for 30 minutes? I'll say what I used to say about kimchi before I understood it better. It's a spicy fermented cabbage that we eat with every meal,
and it formulates as like a probiotic, right? Like it's
we never really looked at it as that. Modern sensibilities look at the health benefits
because it's a fermented food.
Yeah, but it was never about the health benefits or probiotics. It was just it was eating out of necessity.
Yeah,
like lengthening the life of an ingredient and eating it. I think, like, I haven't lived from 200-300 years ago, but like all of it, the history kind of, for me, explains that it was eating out of necessity and making things last and preserving. Because come winter, when it was brutal cold, there is no life.
Yeah.
Whereas today, it is definitely a way of life. Like everything that today's kimchi is, nothing. A lot of it isn't necessarily traditional Korean.
Because of the shift of focus from being about eating out of necessity to eating.
No, because of history.
Say again?
Because of history.
Okay.
Evolution of cuisine. Like, everyone says kimchi, like that's the generic explanation that most Koreans will say, a spicy fermented cabbage.
Okay.
But we still know that there's other variations of it, but we never tend to really address it. It's like an afterthought. But
is that because it needs to be easy to explain to white people?
Not just white people. I think it's modern day sensibilities.
Okay.
Because of everything needs to be a dish. Everything needs to be a recipe. Got to be a fixed, consistent product.
Whereas Korean food is not as strict.
I'd like to believe that every cuisine is the same.
In every culture?
Yes, because we all ate out of necessity.
We all ate seasonally?
Yes, we all ate sustainably before they were trends.
Right. It's a really good point.
Yeah, no, like we were sustainabilists. That's the most sustainable we'll ever be in history. Because we've already denied it so much.
Well, unless they turn the electricity off and we have to go back to that. And who fucking knows? Maybe they will.
Yeah, my example is a bit more extreme.
Okay, what's that?
Apocalypse.
Oh, dude, I'm down. I'm deep diving into simulation theory right now. So
I have a fantasy of being reborn in the Neolithic times.
Okay. You're in a different sim then.
Yeah, because I'd be fascinated to see the pure beginning of food.
Do you listen to the podcast Hardcore History?
No, I don't.
Listen to it. You will love it.
Yeah.
Dan Carlin.
Yeah.
You will love that podcast.
Yeah.
When you talk about things like kimchi, like it just sounds like, okay, kimchi. It sounds like a standard cabbage that's fermented and spicy, right?
Exactly.
What is the actuality of how different it is?
It's changed for 4,000 years, maybe even longer.
Evolutionarily, so it just keeps evolving into something different?
Yeah. And right now is the latest variation of it, I guess.
Okay.
When you think kimchi, the core ingredients that I think come to mind is salt, cabbage, chili, garlic, and
fish
ginger.
Sauce. Okay.
And fish sauce. Fish sauce, I won't put it in there because it depends on the
vegans,
household.
Not vegans?
Yeah, Koreans and vegan kimchi, I don't think it should exist.
Oi.
It can, but no, actually, I've just said something wrong that I don't believe in. No, okay, vegan kimchi exists, but the current version of kimchi shouldn't be vegan.
Why?
Because that's just not how we do it.
Okay, tell me about that. So what's in it that's not vegan?
Fish sauce? Or fermented seafoods?
What's the other one? Fermented
seafoods?
Seafood. Okay. So that to you, it needs to be in as a part of it.
No, I think it's a big part of what today's kimchi is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the fermentation starter?
No, salt.
But there's got to be some bacteria in it added to it, like it's like a starter, right?
See, I've never thought about it that way, but I think that might even be. I don't know. I'm curious now if sourdough or bread had a starter back in the days.
Well, they just created their own starter. That's how we all do it, you know. It's
like they have a starter like today where we take that and feed it and make today's bread. Like I don't know.
Okay.
Because with kimchi, there was never really a starter culture.
Okay.
And based on my interpretation of history, starter is a speed up process.
What did they use a few thousand years ago instead of fermented seafood?
Salt, just salt. Like if you trace back all through history, I forget what it's called in Chinese, but we called it cha. And it was literally a vegetable that was salted and then preserved in its own liquids.
Okay.
That was the original formation of kimchi, I guess. But it was called, the name of it has evolved as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily remember the order of the changes in names, but there's been evolution in the names of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like salt and vegetable, that was the first one. What I saw with the first recorded kimchi, it was quite vague. It was a few years back, but it mentioned it was either a lettuce or an eggplant variety.
I know that the lettuce one exists in the Middle East. Like that's a typical thing that they used to pickle, I guess, is how they did it with salt and or brine, you know. Lettuce was something that they definitely did in Syria and put it in storage behind the walls so that it wouldn't get ruined.
Yeah, but that's all that was written about it. There was nothing else. There was no reference to ginger or anything. And like chili got introduced to us during the Spanish trade routes, and that's like 210 years ago, 220 years ago. But then chili took another 50, 60 years to actually start being incorporated into the food.
Wow.
And garlic was introduced to us at the same time as well. And then the Napa cabbage, or Chinese cabbage, you want to call it, was introduced to us during the Japanese invasion.
So a lot of the flavors that we associate with Korean food today are not necessarily long-time traditional flavors of Korean cooking.
No.
It was a part of the evolution of Korean cooking.
Yes. Like there are, like, I think history always has debates, whether like what I say is my interpretation and my understanding and what I deemed true. Whereas some people, I've seen papers out there that say chili's been around for 500-600 years in Korea.
But it's
I will never know the truth. I just have what I deem to be true to my story. I guess it's biased. History is always biased.
Well, depending on what perspective you want to take at looking at it.
Yeah, but I also that's why I said one day I might realize everything I know about Korean food is wrong.
So, do you think that? Well, I guess what I'm hearing from you is that you hadn't quite nailed your concept in a way that you could explain it to others clearly enough so that everyone could get on board with what you were trying to create, and you weren't able to interpret that through your branding and through your menu and through everything that you were trying to achieve effectively. To fast forward to the end of Chic, you realize that you didn't quite understand the concept as much as you thought you did.
No, I did. I just didn't have a simplified version.
Okay.
Like because what I'm saying now it makes sense, but it confuses you at the same time, right?
Well, I think that it's not that it's confusing. It's so broad.
Yes, it is. That's my point.
Yeah. So it's not that it's confusing. It's that you haven't picked a niche in there and said, I'm going to focus on this tiny little part of Korean food and the evolution of it. So, you know, it's like you could have said, all right, so every dish is going to be kimchi focused, but from different parts of history kimchi, you know, or I'm going to focus on this era of Korean cuisine and then add an Australian twist on it. You were so broad in what your definition of what you were trying to deliver to your customers were. So when they thought that they may have had it figured out, it was never actually what they thought it was.
No. Like the people that enjoyed my food most were people that hadn't had Korean food.
Because they didn't have anything
to had no comparison.
Right? They were just, I really like this cuisine.
They're just like, this is amazing. This is like nothing we've had before.
Which is the point.
Whereas Koreans, I guess this is where appropriation comes in from all cultures kind of mentality. Koreans will come in and a lot of them would say, this isn't really Korean. And then you'd have a few people say, wow, this is more Korean than Korea.
What did your dad say?
He hates it.
Why did he hate it?
Because just like him, I'm proud, stubborn, and don't listen. And he's got a restaurant that's been successful for 15 years.
And what did he dislike about Chic?
Everything.
Because it was trying to be something that was different from him?
Because he didn't understand it. Nothing made sense.
So he was confused as well.
Yeah. Like he didn't understand why certain things should taste this way. Like, why do you have to do something that no one knows about? Why can't you just do something that everyone knows? And I was like, because that's not me.
Yeah, you're trying to innovate. I absolutely can identify with everything that you're saying.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think I'm even innovating.
Well, you are trying to innovate. You're trying to do something that nobody else has tried to do, which is the definition of innovation.
But it has been done.
By whom?
History.
But it's not been done in this time.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's one thing I don't agree with a lot of people. A lot of people say I'm creative and innovative, but I think I'm far from that.
So tell me, this is really fascinating. Why? If you're trying to do something that nobody else has been able to do, why do you think that that's not creative?
Because I've got a source of not inspiration, but information.
So you're trying to reinvent a part of history.
No, replicate or recreate. I don't think reinvent's the right word for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, the journey to get here has been about me and finding myself. But from here, I feel like the journey is more for Korean food and history.
Okay.
Like it's not necessarily about me anymore.
Can you see that because they weren't on that same journey with you, to them it was innovation?
I understand, but that's what frustrates me.
Okay.
Because I guess because they think I'm innovating, they deem my food not traditional or whatever they want. But it's just like, why do you need to label my food? It's Korean.
Because that's how the world is now, friend.
Yeah, which frustrates me. So now the next time I do it, or from now on, I'm kind of thinking old world Korean is my label. And
I think that will help people, even if you did things the same, but just helped people get on board with your messaging.
Because I think that does say enough about that it's going to be very different. Because it's not traditional, it's not authentic, it's old world, which is so no one will know actually what it means, but I think it defines enough that it's going to be different and it comes from the past.
Do different parts of Korea have different types of cuisine? Do different areas do certain dishes?
I think so. Yes, they did, but that was more because different regions had different ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of feel like the same method. Well, we have a set of methods and techniques when it comes to cooking Korean. And
that are regional?
No, I think it's national. I think all countries not all countries, all parts of Korea make kimchi, but the kimchi would be very different based on where they're from and what ingredients they had around. Like coastal regions would use fish sauces or fermented seafoods. Whereas inland, because they didn't have access to seafood, they wouldn't have. But once transport got involved, chances are some of the Koreans in Midland, because salted seafood could travel, they started
experimenting.
Yeah. But yeah, like some places don't have certain herbs, so they wouldn't use that herb. And that's kind of my stance. I feel like Korea participated in techniques as a whole, but the ingredients changed what it ultimately became.
Yeah. So the messaging needed to be more clearly defined with the restaurant?
Yep.
Do you think if you had a pot of cash that you had loads of access to, did you think that you would have kept the restaurant open, or do you think that you still would have decided to close?
No, I think I needed to lose it.
Yeah.
I believe I needed to lose it because it's a blessing in disguise. If I had more loans, I would have kept it open.
Yep.
But I don't think I would have come to the point where I accepted the fact that my messaging was wrong. I was questioning it a lot, but it was still me blaming others rather than myself.
That's a big one to come to, though. Like, that's the most humbling of all things, is like, I got to own the demise of this.
Yeah. But with the loss of it, it became, oh, this is my fault. Who am I to blame anyone else?
I met you like an hour ago, and for whatever it's worth, I'm super proud of you, because it's a really hard pill to swallow. I don't know. Have you ever listened to the Mitchin?
Yeah, here and there.
Right. Did you listen to the episode where Mitch was talking about when their restaurant closed?
I think I did.
Barbrosi?
No, that one, no.
Take a listen to it. I'm going to have Mikey from the Mitchin on the podcast, and hopefully Mitch, or I can get him to come on at some point, because it was just such a great deep dive into the same kind of thing of what you're doing, where, you know, you're owning that. Listen, at the end of the day, the buck stops with me.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm the one who took a chance. I'm the one who decided to do this. And listen, like, I didn't run it the way it should be run. I'm the one who made a number of mistakes, and who knows, even if I didn't make those mistakes, whether it would have stayed open or not. But I can't blame anybody else.
No.
Like, I can't blame the customers that didn't show up for not showing up.
Yeah.
Because there's something I could have done to change that.
Yeah, of course.
But I had so many fires to put out as a business owner.
Yeah.
That was just another thing that I had to focus on. And I think, like, owning that in a sea of business owners whose businesses should be failing so much sooner than they actually let them fail, right? You know, but you know what I mean? Like, people who keep their businesses open for 5 years when they should have closed at the end of the second year. Yeah. And they've buried themselves now in debt that they'll probably never be able to get out from under.
Yeah, but then you got the venues that just last a bit too long and make a bit too much money. That shouldn't.
How do you mean?
There's definitely restaurants out there that the quality lacks compared to restaurants that are closing.
But that goes on the assumption that quality is the defining thing of the difference between a good restaurant and a shit restaurant. Like, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of factors. Yeah, no,
you know
I agree.
What I'm saying? Yeah. At the end of the day, a restaurant is a business, and the success of the business isn't tied to the quality of the food. The success of the business is tied to the deliverability of the consumable product that you're putting out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if someone's selling cheap, shitty donuts versus someone who's making beautiful, you know, donuts that are sourced with heirloom flour and amazing, you know, great quality toppings and fillings and whatnot.
Yeah.
If people don't want that, even though it's better quality and it's better for you, then it's not a successful business.
Yes. Yes.
And our job as creative people who own businesses is to find a way to make our product sellable to our market.
Yeah.
I see business as a creative endeavor. You know, at the end of the day, the difference between success and not is adaptability, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't take your concept and find your people and then go find the location, then you're tied to the location and the people, and you need to find a product that they want.
Yeah.
You've got to be adaptable that way.
Yeah.
And it's something that business people struggle with a lot. No, I want to offer X, Y, and Z. That's the only thing that I want to offer. That's why cafes never survive if they're those assholes that say, I'm only going to serve one size, I'm only going to serve one type of milk, and you can't have any sugar. You know, those places are never, ever, I've never seen any of them actually stay open more than 12 months.
Yeah.
Maybe 18 months at a stretch. Huh?
That sounds like me, though.
But that's not adaptable.
The food that I do in the next iteration.
But you need to go and find the people who want that food then.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, if you've got something that you want to sell, then you've got to go and find the customer that's going to buy it.
Yeah.
And sell it to them rather than placing yourself somewhere and having this expectation of, all right, guys, I'm open. Come get it.
Yeah. No, that I agree. Yeah. So there's different ideas that I'm working on to kind of work on that. Yeah.
Nice. Let's talk about cultural appropriation. This is a topic that I haven't had the chance to talk about on this podcast, and I'm so fucking excited about talking with you about it because you've been talking about it a lot on your Instagram.
Yes, lately.
Tell me where this idea is coming from.
I think it's the appropriation part that hinders my message.
Okay.
Because of all the preconceptions of what Korean food is and what it should be and what it shouldn't be. And based on my journey, I kind of put Korea as responsible for appropriating its own cuisine.
What an interesting idea. How do you mean?
Because there's a lot of history in Korea that's fucked. Like with every country as well. Like every country has the government going against the people and whatnot. Like it always happens with politics. You know, some things benefit certain people, something benefits other people. But like, I don't know if you saw my Instagram post yesterday. I put up a newspaper article. Well, I didn't translate it, but it was the government that was banning Korean households from making their own Korean chili paste, soybean paste, soy sauce, and kimchi at home to commercialize and industrialize the product.
Do they own the product that they want to be selling?
Of course.
Right.
Government endorsed
the
companies. They created opportunities for the companies that were trying to get into that commercialized line of product.
So it's the most disgusting version of capitalism. Like I'm a fan of conscious capitalism, but then there's a vile, evil form of capitalism that's almost communistic.
Yeah, there's been times in Korea where I kind of look at them like that's like dictator as fuck.
Communism, yeah.
And it's kind of.
What's the penalty?
They set a task force up and raided homes and they smashed pots, like the Korean earthenware pots that we use. Yeah, they set up task force, raid homes, smash them all.
So you make your own soy sauce, and they come in and they just they smash it.
The pots that we hold it in.
Do people? How is the reporting happening? Do people have to self-report, or do they have to report on each other? Like, what's the?
They just had a task force. They had a task force going to homes. Home after home. And
checking.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. Let me say, I don't actually
know
that
which is fine.
Detail, but because I remember reading about this a few years ago, and I asked a lot of Koreans and no one really knew. They're like, no, never. It couldn't have happened.
So when you're talking about Korea, what part of Korea are you talking about?
So based on this recent finding, it seems like Seoul and the capital.
Okay.
But I don't know how far it went and how. Obviously, they didn't succeed because there's still households that do it. But because Korea was poor 30 years ago, or no, 40 years ago. That's my mother is in her 10s or 20s at that time, and she was in Korea. Mm-hmm. My mother doesn't even know how to make soybean paste and chili paste.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a stupid question here. A very Aussie, pretend white girl question.
Yeah.
When you refer to Korea, are you purely referring to South Korea, or are you referring to the whole of Korea?
With food,
South and North.
more like the whole peninsula, north and south.
Not so stupid a question then?
For me, no, but I think a lot of South Koreans might take offense.
Okay.
But again, that's why I'm here, because I'm more open-minded about the food, the history. You know, I'm looking, like, I guess every culture is ashamed of their bad history.
Yep.
But I look for the bad history, but it's not because I want to devalue it, but it makes me appreciate it more. Like the fact that they banned it and it survived makes me super proud of our resilience. You know, it's beautiful. It's also, there's both, it's a double-edged blade, you know. There's the disgusting part of it, but there's also the beauty of it, that some of these households have been doing it for generations, regardless.
And completely secretly, and it's like a tradition that's passed from one elder to the next generation. Is it that kind of a thing?
Yeah, like, because Korea, I think it's now starting to change where women, like my mom's generation, if they were affluent, they could get educated. But if they couldn't, they were still that housewife era.
And your parents are from South Korea?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my mom should have, my mom and my many other Korean friends that I've asked about their parents making the soybean paste and chili paste, everyone has no real answer. But it's like, how can something that was so crucial to every household disappear just like that? Like, it never made sense for me. It's like, what I saw in the past, it had to be true, but I just didn't have the evidence. And everyone was like, no, it couldn't have happened. Everyone kept challenging it. But now I found a piece of evidence, a newspaper clipping. There's also propaganda about it saying your grandmother's back is all bent because of chili paste or whatnot. It's like,
so they were trying to make it as they were doing a public service that, you know, we're going to take this away so that your grandmother doesn't have to break her back making soybean paste.
Yeah. Yeah. And your mom can live a comfortable life, which she did practically, but
tradition was lost.
And there's a lot of parts of Korean cuisine where I kind of feel like traditions have been lost and I haven't found today. Whereas at the same time, there's a lot of old school things that I find that I can still somehow find in Korea.
And this is what you were trying to do with Shik, right? You were trying to find a way to bring some of these elements back. Am I understanding that correct?
Yes. And I think the beginning was more ego-driven and about me. I was kind of saying, fuck you all, you don't know Korean food. This is what Korean food is.
I'm going to show you what Korean food really is.
Whereas for me now, it's because of appropriation, it's changed it. And I'm just like, no, shut the fuck up and open your eyes. I'm just showing you a bit more, but there's also a fuck ton more. Like,
can you see the cognitive dissonance that you stirred up in amongst people by doing that? The discomfort.
Yeah, of course.
You were challenging people's sense of identity by saying, by the way, you all don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know half of the story.
No, no, I'm not saying that. For Koreans, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, because what they know is legitimate. It's authentic to their experience and their journey.
But it's a part of it is what you were saying, right?
Sorry, I don't understand.
You're saying like, you guys understand and know what you know, but you're missing a big part of the story.
Yes, there's more to it. There's definitely more to it, you know. And like, you know, I want people, I guess it's also, I want Koreans to be proud of what I'm doing. Because, you know, I grew up being that Korean kid that didn't want kimchi in my lunchbox because it stank and it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so did a lot of my other Korean friends that grew up in Western cultures. But
now it's cool.
Unfortunately.
Dude, Joe Rogan talks about kimchi all the time. Yeah. You all should be very proud.
But no, just like, I think there is a lot to be proud of with Korean cuisine, as with Italians with Italian cuisine, as with Persians with Persian cuisine, like whatever country it is, there's so much to be proud of. But because we're in this white man's world, in a lot of a lot of parts of the world, we grow up denying it, I feel like.
Well, ashamed. Like a lot of, I can use this word because I am one, but all of us wogs who are first generation, anything in a new land.
Yeah.
We go there and we're told we have to fit in a certain way.
Yeah.
And we start, the quickest way for us to do that is by denying or being ashamed of what's normal to us. Our parents are teaching us how to live a certain way.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way they know how to live. We want to assimilate so that we're not the weird kids at school.
Yeah.
And so it's left
normal,
to us to figure it out. Yeah, dude.
But at the end of the day, like, I say I'm Australian, but fuck, I'm Korean as fuck. Like, before I'm Australian, I'm still Korean because that's my history.
Well, it's also how you were raised. Your parents didn't raise you as an Australian. Your parents raised you as the only thing they know how to raise you as, which is Korean. They were raised Korean, and they raised you as a Korean, and you'll raise your kids, if you choose to have them, as Korean Australians.
Yeah.
And then, the further it gets down the generational ladder, the further that generation will get from the Korean culture.
Yeah.
And the more whatever Australian means by that point, because what the fuck does Australian mean now?
Nothing.
It's a melting pot of so many different cultures. And this is the really exciting thing about the hospitality industry is we get to define so much. And this is where cultural appropriation is a really interesting thing, because I remember back in the day when I started being a barista.
Yeah.
If you had, so we're talking 15 years ago.
Yeah.
If you had a Chinese guy working in a cafe, if he was doing anything but the dishes, you would be guaranteed that if that guy got on the coffee machine, the business would go broke. Nobody wanted to buy coffee from a Chinese barista.
Yeah. And no one wanted to go to an Asian restaurant full of white people.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Also, though, nobody wants to go to an Italian restaurant where all the chefs are Chinese.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of...
Still don't.
Sorry?
They still don't.
They still don't.
Yeah.
But it's changing in coffee. In coffee now, that's very much shifting. Most cafes in Sydney are now have at least one or two. There's a lot of Asians that are in coffee now, and it's becoming very cool. Like the you'll be very proud of this. The World Barista Champion that was just coined Korean. Yeah.
Yeah.
The World Brewers Cup was won by someone from China.
Yeah.
It's becoming a huge market in a lot of Asian countries. And so it's becoming culturally appropriate for coffee in Australia, which is like the leading, Australia leads the world with regards to the coffee industry.
Yeah.
And it's becoming absolutely culturally appropriate for Asians to make coffee now. Whereas it was absolutely inappropriate at one point for Asians to make coffee.
But I feel like it's a different light with coffee and food.
How so?
I know what you're saying. I don't know what I'm saying, but because what's the history of coffee? Where did it begin? Where is it originated?
In Africa. In Africa.
But then who started taking it and spreading it?
It was white colonialism, mate. It was all about white people going into, and this is why, cultural appropriation is a really interesting thing. We've got people in these very poor countries, mostly poor countries. So get this, the majority of the coffee in the world is traded on what we call the C market.
Yeah.
The C market, the commodity market, right?
Yep.
That's what it is. It costs somewhere in the order of $2.80 from what was just said at at SCA, the coffee expo, the biggest coffee expo that happens every year in the world. Some numbers were presented there that suggest that it costs about $2.80 to produce a bag of coffee.
Yeah.
1 pound of coffee. Today, the C market was at 86 cents per pound. Right?
Yep.
So what we're saying is that in these poor countries, we're happy to pay these people 86 cents per pound, even though it costs them more to create this bag of coffee. What they really need is $2.80 to have a sustainable product. But because they've already made the product, they're going to sell it for whatever they can get for it. Otherwise, they have to throw it away. So even not having as much as they need to cover their costs is still better than having nothing. There's that side of it, right?
Yep.
We, though, on our end, on the front end of the supply chain, are buying the same bag of coffee at wholesale for $11.
Yep.
So we're happy to pay the coffee roaster $11 for the coffee, but the coffee roaster is not prepared to pay, or the importer is not prepared to pay a fair price to the coffee farmer, farm gate, not FOB, for that.
And that's why you've got Cup of Excellence and direct as well now.
Exactly. Cup of Excellence is a real kudos for knowing that. Cup of Excellence was created to start to shift the paradigm when it came to these kinds of things. And we've got to shift this very quickly. You know, now we're running out of time because coffee farmers are cutting down trees and getting rid of their commodity crops because of this. They're trying to they're planting macadamia nuts, they're planting other crops, other commodity crops that are making better money. And look, what's happening in coffee is no different to what's happening in other commodities. It's just that the way that it's happening in coffee now is one of the lowest prices it's been in 40 years.
When it should be the highest because of the demand.
But the problem is we have too much supply right now.
Okay. Yep.
So we have an enormous supply. You've got big players like Brazil, China, and Vietnam. No, Brazil, Vietnam, and Colombia, are the three highest yields coming from different regions. They're supplying the world with the most amount of coffee right now. And they've had great seasons. And so the amount of coffee that's being sold is because of how much coffee there is. The price that it's being sold for is because we have so much of it and it's so readily available. But the trade of coffee started because of colonialism. They saw. Go ahead.
No, you continue. Sorry.
But because of that, we've established a trade route. These farmers saw it was an opportunity, and now we're ripping these farmers off because of what we need, not because we see that it's valuable to pay them what they deserve to be paid for it.
But that's happened with a lot of things like food trends these days. It always does that. Like quinoa became a superfad and everyone wanted the modern white world, everyone wanted quinoa. And then the people that quinoa was a basic staple in their diet, you know, they lost touch because it got too expensive.
Right. Places like Bolivia.
To sell it rather than eat it themselves. And like in that sense, it's colonialism in a commercial sense. And then with coffee, the reason I said it's different with the Chinese guy selling coffee is it's already been appropriated with colonialism. Whereas it's Chinese cuisine. Like, you know, Vietnamese as well. Like, yes, it is theirs now, but they went through colonialism and they saw changes in their cuisine as well.
So with regards to Vietnamese food, right? You look at a banh mi. Right? And for anyone who doesn't understand what that is, it's a roll that's got a pork and vegetables.
Pate.
Pate, right. So the French go into Vietnam. They, take it over. They teach the Vietnamese how to bake. The Vietnamese become extraordinary bakers.
Yeah.
And now this is where you look at something like cultural appropriation. Are they appropriating French culture and taking it on board as their own?
No, I don't think. I think appropriation only comes in this modern era.
Well, I just want to clear something up. I have a real problem with the term cultural appropriation because I feel like what it actually is evolution. You know, we're allowed to influence each other.
Yes, but I think appropriation isn't influencing each other.
Okay.
Like, people will come out and say, it's like me, like right now in the food world, I think it's comfortable to say that I'm a bit more educated about Korean food than the norm.
When you say the norm, you mean the average Korean person, or you mean in the industry? Okay.
Yeah. Well, the average Korean as well. Like Korean, Korean. I think I've looked into history a bit more than the norm and understood it and interpreted it and tried to understand it a bit more than other Koreans. But I also know that there's a lot more to it than what I know. Wait, where am I going?
So let me help you get onto that train of thought.
Oh, why do I think appropriation? No, why it's not evolution?
Yeah, why isn't it? Yeah.
Because it's not, like, let's say, it's not someone influencing the cuisine. It's someone taking the cuisine and trying to take control of it.
And who's doing that?
Like, let's say what I posted. Like, a great example of not appropriation for me would be David Thompson with Thai food.
He went and got educated somewhere. He lived in Thailand, didn't he?
He lived, he breathed, he understood, he looked at history, he looked at everything.
Yeah.
And
do you know Paul Donnelly?
Yes.
Shout out to Paul. You know, he's in New York now. He's cooking a tuxedo. He's done the same thing. He got trained in Thailand. From what I understand, he was trained by Thai chefs.
Yeah.
So does that mean if he's a Scottish guy who's cooking Thai food?
No, it's not appropriation necessarily. It depends on what he's saying and how he's doing it. No one can claim authenticity, not even myself. Like, I can claim authenticity only for myself.
And this is why I have a problem with people saying cultural appropriation, is because we're all influenced by so much, especially those of us who live in multicultural countries.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody, I'll take Arabic food, for example, you know, za'atar. Za'atar is used in every cafe in Sydney and Melbourne, right? Pretty much. And everything goes through seasons, right? But za'atar is like the thing that goes on manouche. For anyone who doesn't know what manouche is, it's like a pizza dough with za'atar, which is like thyme and sesame and a bunch of different spices. You mix it with oil and you spread it over, and it's like an oregano-ish kind of pizza. There's oregano in it as well. A lot of cafes decide we really like this spice, for lack of a better term, and we're going to put za'atar all over our 53-degree sous vide eggs, and we're going to serve that as Australian fusion food. Some people got really pissed that people were culturally appropriating Arabic food. And it's like, but how about if they just want to use it as an ingredient? Why is that a problem?
And I think I agree with you with that. Like, if an Italian restaurant decides to use kimchi, I'm not fussed.
Yeah, they should be allowed to put kimchi on a fucking pizza if they want to put it in. I mean, they're not saying it's Italian pizza.
Yeah, but if they're going to call it kimchi, I think they do need to respect the cuisine and the culture and understand kimchi.
And how do they do that?
Look at the history, understand the technique with the story behind it. Whereas, like, I would never, because I worked for an Italian food group in Sydney for like 4 years, Vini, Berto, 121 BC. Like, I don't think I know Italian food. I love it. I love eating it, but I would never say I know Italian food.
I feel like to know a cuisine, an Italian food is such a broad word, but the food in Calabria is so different to the food in Sicily, is so different to the food in Milano. It's so different. Like, in order to say that, like, someone like Jamie Oliver spends so much time in Italy understanding Italian cuisine that he can start to get his head around it because he has become a part of it. So you wouldn't say that Jamie Oliver is culturally appropriating Italian cuisine, but even because he spent the effort in understanding it, right? Does that mean... I don't know the
exact story for him, so I can't
comment on that.
I don't want to comment on that because I don't really know his history. Like, he's done great things for food.
Yeah. His mentor, Gennaro, is Italian, and he takes him there and does a whole bunch of stuff with him. So there's that side of things. But you would have a problem with an Italian restaurant serving kimchi. Let's say they wanted to put kimchi on a pizza.
Yeah, they can, but they need to respect its roots. You can't, like, I don't think a restaurant shouldn't just go buy kimchi from a shop and be like, oh, it's cool, it's kimchi, it's cool, let's fucking put it on a pizza.
But what if they love the ingredient and they want to try and work it into their cuisine? Why do we have such a problem as a culture? Like, Arabs got majorly pissed when people started putting za'atar on eggs and not respecting the culture enough. Or, when everyone started using labni. And it became this, like, why the fuck is everybody using labni now? It's our food. Well, it's not our food. It's everybody's food. It's food. Why do we have such a problem with it, do you think?
It's because we grew up prone to racism. When white people were saying, oh, you fucking wog, or you fucking chinky. Yeah. And now it's like, oh, we'll just take your labni. We'll just take your kimchi. Like, it offends us.
It does.
But that's the thing. That's why I feel like you need to respect the roots.
That's a really good point that you raise.
And you need to be careful with how you present it.
What you say there really hits with me.
Yeah.
Because going up through school...
Like, I went through pain because I had za'atar on my fucking bread in the morning. You were like, it stinks. And I had kimchi on rice. It fucking stinks. Like, you had the audacity to put me through pain. But now it's yours.
You want to go to... Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is colonialism with food again. But not everyone. Like...
Well, it's never everyone, but it's definitely a lot of people. It's definitely happening a lot in Australia. It's definitely happening over here with Mexican food.
Yeah, it's happening everywhere. But, like, I think anyone that's right about this appropriation would never claim ownership or claim authority on a cuisine. Remember, I think it was 3-4 years ago, I forget the chef's name, but, like, there was a white chef cooking Vietnamese food, and then he came out, did a video of Bon Appetit, and said, and the title was, "This is how you eat pho properly."
Yeah,
and
wow.
I hadn't heard of any Vietnamese person eating it the way he eats it. Like, if he said, "This is how I like to enjoy my pho," I think it has a different message. But a lot of these...
Yes.
This cultural appropriation comes from people saying, this is the way.
I'm starting to see where the nuance of the sensitivity exists, because at the end of the day, if you are trying to take ownership of a culture that you're actually not a part of, and you're trying to school people based on an ego statement. So you're trying to get more famous. You're trying to get more notoriety. So you're claiming you're claiming an authority on somebody's culture.
Yeah. And I say this because it's my experience. Like, I truly believe I appropriated the shit out of Korean cuisine myself.
Even though you're Korean?
Yes, because I said kimchi is spicy fermented cabbage when it's not. It's one example of kimchi, but for me now, kimchi is a philosophy. It's a way of life. It's not just a technique. It's bigger than that. And then, as well as, like, look, I'm 35 years old. I'm looking at 4,000 years of history in Korea. How the fuck am I going to learn all that in my lifetime? It's never going to happen. Which is it's so much bigger than any of us. No matter, like, even Jamie Oliver, he can't, like, I don't know his messaging, but he can't claim ownership of Italian or claim an authority, because before pasta was pasta, I'm sure there was something else before pasta was a thing.
Yep.
You know.
So you're not looking at something like pasta ending up in Italy because apparently the way the myth goes that pasta actually started as noodles in China and then it was, appropriated by the Italians from that. So that's not the kind of cultural appropriation you're talking about.
No, that's adapting. That's
evolution. That's the kind of evolution that I'm talking about. That's a cuisine evolving around the world.
And every country has that.
Right.
But if I was to do Italian food, chances are people won't respect me.
Right.
They'll be like, oh, a Korean guy doing Italian food. What the fuck?
Especially if you're sitting there tooting your own horn saying, I know everything about Italian food.
Well, even if I say I know a bit more.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not fucking Italian. That's the first thing that will come into mind. Even if I spent the same time as Jamie Oliver in Italy and said I'm doing Italian food because I'm yellow, I reckon the chances are people will challenge it.
Wow. So I'm still uncomfortable with these terms that everyone's starting to use now, like the color of our skin, the yellow, the brown. Like, I never grew up in Australia aware of these terms.
Yeah.
And living in America, I'm hyper aware of the fact that as the whitest Arab woman I know, I'm not white.
Yeah. But, like, it's like, where does even yellow come from? Like, my skin isn't even yellow.
You're not yellow. It's why I like cringe a little bit when you say, like, I know I'm yellow. Well, bro, you're not. You're actually pretty white.
The label that I've been given.
Yes.
I'm yellow. Like, I'm a banana because I'm yellow on the outside but white on the inside. It's
very strange. It's like we need to the hospitality industry is very interesting in this sense that we kind of have to look at you, an Asian man, and say, well, you have to do Asian cuisine.
No, I believe that. Because it's an identity. Cuisine is an identity. We identify ourselves with the food of our culture. And with me, from my experience, Korean cuisine and its history has taught me so much about myself more than this world has.
Okay.
So it's like, for me, it's like, I'm Korean, which is why I understand the people now. Which is why I understand the history. Like, for me, it is an identity. And I've spent the past 10 years or so learning about it and trying to understand it, interpret it, represent it in a rightful manner.
And did you feel like somewhat of a fraud when you use this term of cultural appropriation of your own culture?
Yeah.
Right? Does that mean that there was some feeling of being a fraud in the way that you represented the cuisine from Korea?
Yeah, no, hell, like 10 years ago, if I looked at my food today in the mindset of 10 years ago, I'd probably say my food isn't Korean. Or really Korean.
Traditional Korean.
Well, tradition is such a great word as well. What about when does tradition begin and when does tradition end?
Yeah.
Is traditional 40,000 years ago.
Bro, you have set so many... How are you going to create some boundaries around the terminology that you're using and where you're going to define yourself when it comes to this? Because if you're using things of like, when does tradition start and when does it end? And you're going to present something that is traditional cuisine, traditional Korean cuisine. How are you going to define that?
I can't. The only thing I can say is it's my representation and understanding of Korean culinary history thus far.
From a particular era or from a particular region?
From the whole scope of it.
I think
it will constantly evolve, because every day there's a lesson that I might learn about Korean history or food, and then I might be proven that I'm wrong about a certain thing, and then I'll adapt to that, and then I might discover a new ingredient or new condiment or something, and that will evolve as well. For me, Shik is about my learning experience of Korean cuisine and history, and me just sharing what I know thus far.
And will you, in your next iteration of Shik, I assume you're going to keep, like, the next venture you're going to, you're going to call it Shik, or are you going to call it some? Yeah. I assume that iteration of Shik is going to be more clearly defined than what you're.
No, it can't be clearly defined.
I'm going to be so interested to watch where this goes, because I feel like that the issue with the last business was that the messaging was not clearly enough defined.
Yeah, but now I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Now I know what it is. Now I'm confident that I have no boundaries. Whereas before it's like, what are my boundaries? And I was trying to define my boundaries as well, but there isn't. Now I'm just like, there is no boundaries. Like, I'm looking at 4,000 years, whatever I choose to put on the menu that makes sense on the menu, I'll put on there. And next week I might learn something is wrong, and I'll be like, shit, okay, let's tell this story. I thought this was that for this many years, but I've realized it was wrong based on this, and I'll change it to show the contrast in it. It's so different.
And will you tweak the messaging? Will you tweak the way that you deliver the messaging of the changes and evolutions that you're making with Shik in the menu changes?
It's a lot of information for diners, because I don't think diners really give a shit.
No, I agree with you.
Not that I don't care, but it's just like they're there to have an enjoyable meal in an enjoyable experience. Part of that story, it's more for me. It's just like, it's a selfish expression of me to do Shik.
I feel that if you are going to repeat the same, I don't want to use the word mistakes, but if you're not addressing the same
chances
hurdles,
are I will fail. I accept that.
No, it's not about that. I don't think it's about that. Like, there's nothing wrong with failing. It's a good friend of mine said at a presentation that we were giving together last year, he said, my mentor taught me it's okay to fuck up, just don't fuck up the same way twice.
Yes, but I don't think it's my fuck up either. Like, yes, it is, but like you said, I'm trying to convey this whole new message, and with that comes multiple. Like, I'm knocking on everyone's door saying, hey, open your fucking eyes. Open your ears, eyes. Like, there's a lot more. Like, I guess we are what we eat.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they say. And I think we're all guilty of thinking we're a lot bigger and a lot more important than we actually are.
I can accept that.
And through history shows that we're nothing. We're 35 years of, or however old you are, maximum 100 or so, based on history, which is tens and thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do we know everything? We can't. You know, I'm 35 years based on the 4,000 years that I'm looking at Korean history. Like, I'm nothing to it. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, hey, look, there's this. How fascinating is it? It's different. It's mind-blowing to understand all these evolutions in Korean cuisine. It defines me as a human, I think, and why I am a certain way based on, I guess, stereotypes, you know. Certain, like, Italians are seen as passionate, and, you know, Koreans are seen as resilient, and history proves that. Mm-hmm. History shows why. It explains it. Yeah, and when people keep thinking so narrowly, it's hard for me to get my message out there. And
well, because your message is so broad.
But that's the thing.
And you almost need the restaurant to survive for 20 years for you to start making any kind of like to have any sort of cohesion with your customers. They keep coming back and getting more of the message, and it's not for 20 years that they're going to be able to get their head around what you're trying to do.
Yeah, like I said, I'm here to the end.
Right. The only thing is the diner hasn't got that attention span anymore.
No, they don't. But, you know, eventually, like hopefully there'll be people looking at their cuisines and their backgrounds with the same questions that I have, and delving into that a bit more. You know, then it becomes multiple voices, because it's not just about Korean food for me. It's like I really want to see as much as possible about Italian food or Arabic food or Brazilian food. You like name the country, I want to see it. Like the extent of it. I want to see the story of how it evolved. I want to understand the people. You know, it's fascinating for me. That's why I've chosen this journey with my cuisine, because that's what excites me and intrigues me.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe they're out there already, but I don't know. And there are that I haven't touched base with, but I think the community will grow. You know, it's like,
we hope.
Like, what is it? When Farhan Adria did that whole gastro cooking, everyone, like not everyone, but a lot of people were like, what the fuck? That doesn't make sense. But then it inspired a whole new generation of chefs to kind of partake that journey as well. You know, like I'm not comparing myself to Farhan Adria in any way, but there's a story with everything. And for me, this is a pure story that I can represent. And hopefully other people are out there already, and even more will join on this journey of representing their cuisine in the purest form of what history defines. You know, and then it becomes multiple voices saying, hey guys, open your eyes. You don't really understand how big this is.
So it's a purist approach.
In my mindset, yeah, I think it's a purist approach. People will challenge it, fine. But this is my story. I've spent 10 years researching history and trying to look at history in an unbiased way, which is why I think, like, you know, the bad history of Korea, where Korea bans pots and fermenting, it's disgusting behavior. But hey, we survived it.
But it could also be a fucking great story to tell as a part of a restaurant's ethos and concept. You know, having a restaurant that was the inside of the restaurant was filled with replicas of these pots.
Yeah.
And people could connect to that kind of story as a way for you to help them get on board with what your messaging is. You know, the logo of Chic being one of these pots and having that message clearly delivered as this is a restaurant that looks at a history of a cuisine that is steeped in deep, rich cultural and political history that has been affected over millennia. And I think delivering something, and I mean, what the fuck do I know? But I've never opened a restaurant. But at the same time, every single client that I have helped open a cafe, the ones that make it are the ones who have a clear message, a clear concept. They understand what they are trying to bring to their community. And their customers aren't confused by what they're trying to do.
But
go ahead.
I think I have a clear message. I know I have a clear message, but it's unfortunate that modern day society
isn't there yet.
Accept that message. And
which is where adaptability becomes an important part of that. It's like, well, how do I clear a path to helping them get on board with what I'm trying to do? Perhaps I have to take 3 steps back and have, you know, it's like we have coffees in the coffee industry that are super rare, right? And they cost $25 a cup.
Yeah.
We have trade practices that happen whereby we're trying to get people to pay a fairer price for a cup of coffee, and they just don't want to. And so what happens in that kind of a situation is you have your staple menu, the menu that is the bread and butter menu. It keeps the doors open, and it makes sure that you can pay the wages and all that kind of thing. That's your lattes and your cappuccinos with 3 sugars and, your extra hot flat whites and baby chinos and all of that. Your $25 a cup coffees aren't going to be for everybody.
No.
But perhaps over a couple of years, 5 years, whatever it is, you're going to bring more and more people onto wanting to try those coffees every now and then. So they become a part of that. They understand the mission that you're going on with regards to that. That's one way that I've seen people buy into a philosophy that a business can then be steered more that way down the road if you can't find a way to bring your customers on board.
But like for me, the concept was based on Korean barbecue. And that's what sells in the Korean cuisine market. And the foundation of the concept was based around that. But that was me adapting, because that wasn't the food that I would have wanted to do. If I wanted to convey this, if I wanted to do exactly what I wanted to do, I would have collapsed in 2 months, I reckon.
Yeah. Tell me something. Someone commented to me about the room.
Yeah.
What was there something strange about the setup of Chic?
Yeah, it was cold, if you want to call it that. It was empty.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything's like white and gray and neutral and pretty empty. Like, it's a cold space when it's empty. Okay. But I understood that, and I chose that based on the fact that the food was going to be a hero. So once you come in, it's empty. Once the food comes, there's all these colors and different ingredients on the table. That was me saying, hey, look at the food. Don't worry about nothing else. And again, like, I know we talk about food businesses having different formulas, but I'm a believer where maybe I'm naive, but I feel like food should be the epitome. You're there to dine. You're at a food business. It should be about the food. If the space is nice on top of that, great. If the space is dirty, so what? If the food's great, who cares?
You got to get bums on seats, though, bro.
Yeah, no, I know.
You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day,
I kind of understand that I've chosen a path that's not. It's going to be hard to get bums on seats, which is why I said get a smaller venue. If it's a 20, 30-seater venue.
How much was the other one? How much was the original Chic? How many?
65.
Okay.
That means I save on labor costs.
Yep.
Like, I pull it right back and start with something really basic and build from that. That's the idea. Yeah, like, at least I don't have to get, because the venue's smaller, the rent's going to be cheaper, the labor cost is less. You know what's going to happen. Yeah. Yeah, I know what's going to happen. It's going to be purely me.
No, you're going to get a smaller venue. You're going to learn from this. Yeah. It's going to get more popular. Yeah. And you're going to have a line out the door. Yeah. And then you're going to have the problem that everyone hates having. It's a great problem to have, but it's not any better than not having enough people there, because people get pissed off and when they can't get a table and they don't ever want to come back again. Yeah, but I think but then that provides opportunity of growth. And I can expand, relocate to a 40-seater restaurant, let's say. Okay. Because me going from a 20 to 200 because it's a line out the door is the stupidest decision I think I'd make. Yeah. So building on it, How will you find your people next time? Have you figured that part out yet? I think it's the same way, just media and Instagram, and just keep pummeling it. Like, until I open number 2, I'm planning to hold a lot of pop-ups, collaborations, do food that's not really me with different chefs, do like Korean Mexican with a Mexican chef or something. Like, look at you culturally appropriating the shit out of it. People are going to do it. I'm going to do it. You've gone from fuck cultural appropriation to I'm going to be the king of cultural appropriation. It's out of,
interest as well. Like, I'm curious to see what people say about me being Mexican or Korean Italian, even if there is an Italian chef there or a Mexican chef there.
So kimchi tacos are on the.
Well, Roy Choi does it, and it fucking sells.
Yeah, but he's Roy Choi. You know, like Roy Choi will, and this is the other side of things. Like, you know, I've known chefs who, because of their name, they do stupid shit just to see if people are stupid enough to buy it.
No, I'm curious to see what people say. Okay. Who knows? I might not even do it because I might get too scared.
What with the like weird shit like kimchi?
Yeah, like
you can't have a name like Kimchi Pete and not have and not be doing things like kimchi tacos if you're going to be doing fusion.
No, if I choose to do fusion, but I'm not convinced yet. I want to. I think it'll be fun, and it'll be a learning curve for me to cook with other cuisines, because there's something to learn from that I can apply to my food that will make it better as well.
I think the article that came out from Broadsheet is presenting you as one of the people want to see you succeed, dude. People want you. No, people do. Like you came out and said something that was really hard to say.
Yeah.
And people want to champion somebody who's stepping into their vulnerability and copping to their shit.
And then hopefully I don't need to find people for 2.0 then, as long as I do what's right by me.
And your customers.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, you're not going to create some sort of a middle ground that gets bums on seats. Then even if they show up, they're not going to come back.
Then 3.0 it is.
I hope you're going to be a little less rigid with regards to, I mean, look, it's great to have a concept and a philosophy and whatnot, but if you're not going to be adaptable to what's going to keep the doors open, then, you know, perhaps it's that you're going to end up getting to 3.15 before you're like, all right, let me see if I can, you know, it's like every cafe's got to have avocado toast on the menu.
Yeah.
Every cafe's got to have poached eggs in Sydney, in Melbourne.
Because what I do is so different to whatever else is out there. I don't know. I feel like it's so unique.
You've got to have a gateway to help people understand what you're trying to do.
Open your eyes.
You're being far too generous of people's ability to do that. Diners are not like that.
That's my goal, to get people to open their eyes. So I feel like adapting to to get people in through the doors is sacrificing my purpose.
Well, I'll give it to you a different way.
Yeah.
Me, someone who was watching a couple of your videos and you were explaining, you were doing that pork and kimchi video.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I was watching you. If I watched that with the sound off, even as I have a plant-based diet, but I've only been plant-based for 10 years.
Yeah.
So before that, I ate all the porks and I ate like all the meat and all of that. And my parents were very adventurous cooks and fantastic cooks.
Yeah.
And so my father would do things like he would go to Asian stores and just say to the person, give me all the aromatic stuff that I can just try with. And he'd bring it home, and he loved doing that.
Yeah.
And he would just learn how to do all this stuff. Now, I was watching your video. I watched it with the sound off, and then I watched it with the sound on.
Yeah.
If I had walked into your restaurant and seen you using Korean words to describe things, all of the sudden, there's distance between me and understanding what I'm consuming.
Yeah.
But just the visual of it, knowing that was pork and that was some sort of a fermented cabbage, gave me a way to approach that dish that felt somewhat familiar to me.
Yeah.
Right? So it gives me a gateway into it. But if you're serving me something that's completely foreign to me, I'm going to have no way to connect with the dish. If you if you present me a whole menu that is going to be stuff that I don't understand, then I'm going to feel completely intimidated by that. And we as people who are trying to present a vision have to help our potential customers not feel intimidated, so they're going to want to try what we're doing.
Yeah. No, I understand.
And you giving people a couple of dishes in your menu that are approachable gives you an opportunity to then come to them and say, okay, so this is the third time you've been here. We have this really beautiful dish tonight that you probably wouldn't understand if I just said the name to you, but if you want to try something different, try this. You don't think that would be, and again, what the fuck do I know? But
it's crazy because like my menu didn't speak much Korean. It was very ingredient focused.
Was it ingredients that they understood though?
For the most part, yes. It would say cured trevally with Korean sweet herbs and chrysanthemum. You know, it'd be beef tartare with pear, pine nuts, and saltbush. You know, like.
Yeah, but again, I don't think it was necessarily like. Again, the people I spoke to that had your food all said it was exceptional.
Yeah. But they were intimidated?
It was the room and the I want to say the word branding. It was the food was, when they tasted it, because again, the people who I associate with have quite sophisticated palates. So they go in there and they're open to new experiences. But I don't think that they're the people who are going to keep your business open. I think the people who are going to keep your business open are going to be the people who have less sophisticated palates and will, they're not the kind of people who eat McDonald's every day, but they're not the kind of people who are going to be, seeking fine dining every night either.
Yeah. But I think there was a lot of confusion on the customer's end as well. Like, it's fine dining. Like, the room was very serious because it was so stark.
Yes. And that is intimidating. And if you have a room that's intimidating and a menu that's trying to push an agenda that isn't inviting, can you see how those two things together can get quite
it's
overwhelming?
crazy. Like, if you go to like a modern Italian restaurant and they say octopus and nduja, tomatoes, and like the next menu says scallops and cauliflower, like they don't have a problem with that.
No, because the same menu still has spaghetti and lasagna on it.
No, even if it doesn't.
Well, it's got something on there that it's got pasta on there. At the end of the day,
I had kimchi on my menu.
You can't eat just kimchi for dinner.
No, but I had steaks on the menu. Like,
okay.
But yes, I did use secondary cuts that people aren't familiar with or you don't see commonly.
Mm-hmm.
But that was part of the messaging. I mean, about sustainability and using everything that's available. It's like everyone sells sirloins and porterhouses.
Yeah. I'm just saying that with, Chic 2.0, perhaps having a part of the menu that is less intimidating to people. Things that you think are not intimidating might still be intimidating to people.
Yeah, well, that's something I still struggle to understand. I put on a banquet menu later on,
too late,
4 months later. That was definitely a change because people would just be like, hey, I've got no idea. Should we do the banquet? And I'd tell them, look, it's good for value.
Mm-hmm.
Like $60, you get so and so many dishes, and most people can't finish it.
And by that point, the business is in so much financial struggle that it didn't happen quickly enough. Is that right?
Yeah, yes. I didn't give them that approachable idea, I guess, because it was always a la carte, and I guess that's intimidating when there isn't. But if there's the banquet option, people can ask about that, and then I can start talking about the food.
Yep.
in a more direct sense. Whereas when they sit an a la carte, I'd spiel them and say, this is the menu, this is how it works, this is what you should order, and this is how you should order, and this is how much you should order. But there's no really, the banquet helped in that most people had something to connect to, and that was the banquet option. Tell me about it.
Yep.
What's on there?
Because look, dude, like at the end of the day, you've come out with such a humble statement, and you're saying it with so much vulnerability, and it's so great to see in a business owner because it's very rare.
Yeah.
It's something that I advocate for a lot is on this show and in everything that we're doing in Map It Forward is like there's no shame in closing a business.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shame in, there's a lot of shame in opening a business and burying all your suppliers in credit that they've got to carry for you and, not being able to send your kids to college and, not being able to ever pay your bills back. Like there's a lot of shame in that. So closing a business in a timely manner, that's not shameful. That's good business. And I think that you've come out with such a humble statement that I think that that's probably something that could guide the way that you move forward, the humility that you've stepped into and perhaps saying like, maybe I don't have to be so rigid in the way that in the mission that I'm trying to achieve. Perhaps I can find a way to make it more approachable so that the customer wins and I win. Like at the end of the day, no one wants to see you fail again and again and again and again. Like I think you could be a real advocate for our industry and by our industry, I mean the wider hospitality industry and business ownership in saying like, yes, I opened a business, I gave it a go and I failed quickly, which is such a great attribute. And now what I need to do is figure out how I can reinvent myself, pay back my debts. And you've come out so publicly and said, I'm going to spend however long it takes to pay back my debts. Dude, that's massive. That's so admirable. Do you know how many people in our industry, of course you know this, they open a cafe, they run up the credit with one supplier, drop that supplier, never pay the debts back, go use another milk supplier or bread supplier or, produce supplier, and then go back to it and keep going again and again and again. You haven't done that. You've kept your credibility.
Yes and no.
Well, you're going to pay people back.
Yeah.
That's where the credibility maintains itself. You've got to
that credibility back.
Yeah. And you're not hiding behind it. You're not hiding behind this thing of, well, I'm not going to cop up to this. A lot of our suppliers end up going out of business because they're not able to carry all this excess credit that they're carrying for their customers.
Yeah.
You're setting a great example. And then you're going to go and do that, pay those creditors back, and hopefully open a business where you have learnt a little bit more. And the press is going to be watching you even more for the next iteration of Chic.
I feel like yes, I'm being stubborn, but it's because I believe in the food that I do so much. And I believe there's a true message behind it, which I don't want to sacrifice, but I'll compromise on the financial spectrum, like starting a smaller business, starting with nothing, Like
I'm going to get you to go and talk to my friend Mark Dundon, who is the godfather of specialty coffee in Australia, and he's opened loads of cafes. Do you know St. Ali?
Yes.
He's the original owner of St. Ali.
Yeah.
He currently owns Seven Seeds and Brother Baba Boudin.
Yeah.
And he is the master of having a concept. Like this guy he's at heart, he's a fine artist. He creates paintings and artistic things and has clear visions for what he wants to deliver.
Yeah.
But goes about the way of understanding how to marry what he's trying to deliver with how it can be taken up and create a feasible business out of it.
Yeah.
While also staying he's one of the original godfathers of Cup of Excellence.
Mm.
And he lives in Melbourne.
Yeah.
I'm going to connect you to. Hopefully, I think he's someone who you should sit down and have a coffee with.
Yeah.
And, he could probably talk to you about how to get your vision executed and still be able to stay in business without compromising too much.
Yeah. Well, it's the next learning curve for me, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you have mentors?
Mentors?
Yeah.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Not really. I feel like I've kind of put myself in this own little journey, my own little bubble, because I feel like a lot of people don't really understand the approach that I have with food. So it's kind of closed me off a little bit more as well. Yeah, I'll bounce ideas off friends and stuff, but I don't think I really have a mentor.
I think that might be valuable to you to find someone who's in the restaurant industry, who has done and I'm talking someone who, I know you don't like to think of yourself as an innovator, but I'm sorry, dude, you are. You are trying to be an innovator, and it's great. It's not a terrible thing. You have some staunch ideas of what you want to create. Yeah. And I think finding the Justin Hems of the world and sitting down with them, because he was a real innovator. We owe so much to him for what he did to the Sydney hospitality scene.
Yeah.
Finding people like that and asking them for an hour of their time to sit down with them and say, listen, what advice do you have for someone like me who's trying to do something that's different?
Mm.
And people like that are really flattered when somebody who's actually taken the opportunity to back themselves sits down and says, or you know another person who you should chat to? You should chat to Mikey Eggett.
Yeah.
He's a fucking legend. I can't wait.
Yeah.
He's going to be on the podcast in a couple of weeks. And that dude has hands down made me some of the best meals I've ever had. Mm. And, they started Pinbone, which was fine dining, and then opened Good Luck Pinbone, which was Asian influenced, and then went and did, what was the one they did? The Italian version of that. Yeah. So, he's someone who keeps reinventing shit. I think having people like that, because you've got such a great soul for what you want to do. You have such a deep connection with it that you don't find many people like that.
Yeah, which is why I don't want to deny it.
But having people in your corner that can help you tame that tiger, just get control of it so that it's walking with you, not fighting against you.
Yeah.
Because I think you're onto something really amazing.
Hopefully.
I better fucking get a table the next time I'm in Melbourne and you're open. Because the queue's going to be massive. I'm sure of it.
You never know.
I have a good feeling about this. I think that you've got so many of the right elements that people don't usually get to have access to.
I'm still learning as well, so we'll see where it takes us. There's
that humility. You've got this great fight going on between your stubbornness and your humility. It's wonderful to watch.
Confusing. From my perspective.
Are you sure you're not Arab?
Well, my national spirit comes from that end of town.
We better wrap this up. We've just done 2 hours.
Yeah.
That went very quickly.
Yeah.
Tell people how they can find you online.
Instagram is probably the best way. Kimchi Pete.
Kimchi_Pete if anyone wants to find you. And any clues as to how long it will be to open Chic? Couple years, you think?
In my mind, it's as soon as possible. So
nice.
Whatever financials provide, that would be the answer. So I can't really speculate on that.
Are you looking for business partners?
that's something to be, yes, but it has to be the right people. They need to believe in my messaging, and they need to probably provide for my stubbornness about the messaging.
I'm going to invite you to think about the idea of adaptability.
Yes. No, like
just think about it. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying think about it.
No, I think about it, but I think there is no adaptability in my. I don't understand how I adapt because I'm so open-minded. It's like, how do I get narrow-minded? I don't.
Well, it's not narrow-minded. It's focus.
Yeah, I think we just use different words for the same thing.
Well, someone who's narrow-minded is like, this is all they want to focus on, and they are going to be stubborn about it. Whereas when you're, sorry?
That's what I'm doing. I'm so focused on Korean food and whatever it is that involves Korean food. That's all I'm doing. I'm not saying I'm going to learn Korean and Italian and Japanese and French.
Yeah. I want to have a chat with you right before you open the next Chic.
Yeah. So you can say, I told you.
No, I have no interest in I told you.
No, I'm joking.
No. I think that I'm going to be one of those people waiting in line to come and eat your food. You better put something that's vegan on the menu just for me.
I'm just as interested as you are to see
the next iteration.
Sitting at
before
I open, because I know there's going to be a change.
And that's what I mean. Like, I'm fascinated by the internal journey of people like us, people who venture in. I see them as vision quests. We know this is going to be hard. We know we're about to brutalize ourselves, and we're not deterred from that journey. And so, I think that you're going to do amazing, whether it lasts or it doesn't last. I think that you're going to learn so much from that, and getting into your mind and understanding your mindset right before that happens, I just think would be super interesting.
Yeah.
So there's no I told you so there. Trust me.
I know. That was only joking. I wasn't even.
Great. I'm just fascinated by minds like ours.
I know where I'm going, but I'm not disclosing that yet because I know it can change. But I'm pretty convinced it's going to happen.
And if anyone is listening to this and is interested in perhaps a financial conversation about Chic 2.0, get in contact with Pete and see where it goes. You don't want them to get in contact with you?
No, I just feel awkward about it. It's just like, why?
Well, because you have some pretty interesting elements to your story, dude.
No, I don't deny that. And there's a whole lot more.
On that note, sir, thank you so much for having this conversation. The best of luck with everything that you do. I hope that we will have a conversation again soon when you're ready and I can't wait to come taste your food.
Yeah.
The vegan version of it anyway.
Yes.
Have an amazing rest of your day.
You too.
Bye, mate.
Bye. Thank you.